probably the most boring subject in the entire world. So, without further ado, close your eyes and begin to rest as I talk your ear off about something incredibly boring. First off, you have to understand that at any given time there's about 6 different prices for a medication. Pharmacies will buy a medication from their wholesaler for one price, and then they bill insurances for another. Most people like to assume that this is like a simple 20% markup, like anything else, but it's not. Medication pricing does not follow any logic. It's actually very, very difficult to understand. So, if a medication is purchased from a pharmacy, they normally charge insurances about 4 or 5 times what they actually paid for it, which is not normal in like any sort of a retail space. The reason why they do that is very, very complicated, but I'll do my best to explain. Believe it or not, it's actually not out of greed or malice in the pharmacy's perspective. It's just the standard that we kind of live in now. So then, this is what happens. A medication will be purchased from a pharmacy for about $5. As an example, we'll call that the wholesale price. Once the pharmacy has the medication and they get a prescription for it, they'll then bill the insurance for probably, let's say, $25. And they do this intentionally, and the insurance company knows that they're doing it too, because it's just a game that we have to play. Whenever the pharmacy bills the insurance company, they say, no. That is not worth $25, okay? We know, because we have access to the data, that it's only $5 for you to buy it, so we will give you $6.50. Collect $1 from the patient, and, okay, we'll just give you 50 cents. Collect $1 from the patient for their copay, and that is your reimbursement for that medication. I will say, though, most of the time, pharmacies really only make a couple cents, not even a full dollar. So in this example, I'm using it just to prove a point, but it's not a real world example. Now, why does this happen? There's several different insurance companies that are all reimbursing for the same medication, but they have different prices that they will pay. It normally doesn't vary too much, but the pharmacy doesn't want to run the risk of billing an insurance company a lesser amount than they're willing to reimburse. It's so stupid. I hate it too, but that's just the way it is. So then, we're pretty clear on that. The pharmacy will buy medication and overcharge intentionally an insurance company so that the insurance company reimburses their magic number reimbursement that they already have predetermined. And then that's how life goes on. Now, the $25 that the insurance, or that the pharmacy billed the insurance company, that becomes something called the usual and customary price. The usual and customary price is also known as the cash price. This gets confusing to people because they think that this is the price that they should be paying for a medication, when in reality it's just a billing term. Now, this is where things get very, very confusing. Let's say somebody walks in off the street and they want this medication. They have a prescription for it. The pharmacy then has to charge them the usual and customary price. They have to charge them $25, even though they know that the medication only costs $5, even though that they know that if they had insurance, they would only make $6.25. They still have to charge the patient $25. Now, why do they have to do that? If they didn't, and the insurance company found out about that, they will be very upset, and they will likely pull their contract. I don't know upset an insurance company would be if they just saw like one infraction of this. I really don't know at to what point a pharmacy would actually be penalized. But the insurance company would have a valid argument. They would say, that's unfair, you're charging us $25, and then a cash-paying patient, you only charge, I'm just going to say, 7, 6, something like that. So, people without insurance get wrapped into this billing issue, and it's to no fault of their own. Now, this is where discount cards come into play, like mine, Crush Card. If a cash-paying patient, or another term for that would be somebody without insurance, wants this medication, my discount card will step in and play the middleman. They will say, don't bill them $25, bill us $25. You, the pharmacy, collect $6.25 from the patient. Actually, it would probably be more than that if you're using a discount card. Let's say, I'm just making up numbers here, don't take this to the bank. But let's say, collect $9 from the patient. Give the discount card 4. Wait, no, it'd probably be more like 3. Pharmacy, you keep 6. The cost of the medication was $5. The pharmacy got to keep 6, so they made $1. And then $3 goes to the discount card in that example. It could be more, it could be less, depending on the medication. And a lot of times, whenever a pharmacy bills a discount card, they actually lose money. So they may actually be paying more to the discount card than they do receive from the patient. That's why I only suggest, and in fact you really can't even do this differently, I only suggest my discount card is used at chain pharmacies. They're okay with that because they get the business and they get the client and, the brand recognition. Like, that all helps them. They don't really care so much if they use a couple bucks. But at an independent pharmacy, that would not be preferable, but you would never even be able to use my discount card at an independent pharmacy, and here's why. Now, if you go to an independent pharmacy and you look at their billing, they have a little bit more leeway than a chain pharmacy does, for example. And it's because they're kind of under less scrutiny. And there's really no fear, I guess, of them getting into trouble with an insurance company. In fact, a lot of them don't even bill insurance companies anymore. But that's why I recommend everyone uses an independent pharmacy if they can, because they can do so many more things than chains can do. Whenever you go to an independent pharmacy, they have a lot more freedom in their billing, and they can give you a fair price to begin with, so you don't even need a discount card at an independent pharmacy. All this together is very unfortunate, because what ends up happening, and I used to see it all the time, is we get let's go through all the pricing here. A pharmacy will buy a medication for a price. Let's call that the wholesale price. They'll bill the insurance company for an excessive amount of money, about 5 times more than what they paid for it. And some of these meds are, a couple $100. Take that times 5, and you're talking over $1,000 a lot of the time. And then someone who walks in off the street and doesn't have insurance now has to pay that inflated usual and customary price, that cash price, that insanely unrealistic number that only exists for billing. And they have no other option because they have no idea what's going on. And a lot of the time in these chain pharmacies, they hide these numbers from the staff. So the staff doesn't even really know what's going on because they don't know how much they paid for it. All they see is that whenever they ring it up at the register, it's $1,200 or whatever. They have no clue that if they went to another someone will be sitting on the other side of the counter, being faced with a $1,200 bill. And by bill, I mean requirement to pay. And they will think to themselves, my doctor prescribed it. I'm sick. I would rather be alive than have this $1,200. And they end up paying it. And it's disgusting. It's taking advantage of negligence. Or I know I can't even call that negligence. It's just taking advantage of someone. Because they don't know. How would they know? It takes an entire profession. It takes several years of schooling to navigate this healthcare system. And they become a victim to it. Now, additionally, there's also something called average wholesale price and wholesale acquisition cost. If you ever hear these terms, run away from whoever you're talking to. They are very, very irrelevant terms, and people very frequently, in fact, I see a lot of professionals, a lot of doctors will reference these numbers, and these are not numbers that are relevant to billing, or that are not relevant to payment for the patient. They are billing only numbers. I don't even really know how most of them are calculated. You would think an average wholesale price is the average of the wholesale price, but that doesn't appear to be true. Now, as a good rule of thumb, you can look at the average wholesale price of several different medications and say this one is cheaper than that one. That is true, but it doesn't reflect how much the actual cost it will be to the patient. Average wholesale price and wholesale acquisition cost are used to calculate reimbursement from the insurance company. And they have mathematical formulas that you can literally look at and figure out how much a pharmacy is being reimbursed if you want to. Also, while we're on this topic, someone correct me if I'm wrong. If anyone listening to this is an independent pharmacy owner, I believe wholesale acquisition cost is used for generic or brand reimbursement, and average wholesale price is used for the other one. I forget which one goes to which. And what happens is, whenever a medication is a brand medication and it goes off patent, the very first generic manufacturer then has a slightly discounted price. But now, because it's technically generic, they have a different reimbursement formula. Long story short, for a while, maybe for the first 6 months, after a medication goes off of patent, those generic reimbursements are really, really good for a pharmacy. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that that's how that works. And this rolls me into my next point. The term brand and generic, those are billing terms. They have nothing to do with the superiority of a medication or how well a medication performs. Brand and generic are used to calculate reimbursement based on those two formulas that I just mentioned. That's impossible to explain to the layperson. They are not capable of understanding that. So then, how many different prices do we now have for medication? Let's go through them all. Oh, and I actually forgot two. There's also the price that the insurance reimburses. That actually doesn't have a name. I'm going to call that the insurance reimbursement price. And then there's also the copay. Most people are familiar with the copay. I'll explain here in a moment if you're not. So the pharmacy buys the medication for the wholesale price. That's number one. The pharmacy will reimburse or will bill the insurance for an excessive inflated price. That is the usual and customary price. The pharmacy will the insurance company will reimburse the pharmacy for a amount. I don't know, let's call that the reimbursement price, I guess. When the patient comes to pick up the medication, actually let's back up here for a slightly different, the numbers are going to be the exact same thing, but like the context is relevant, so I would call that a second, or I guess it'd be a seventh different price. And there's also the insurance or the discount card price. So that's the price the patient would pay if they use a discount card, and that varies from card to card. You can check crushcost.com if you want to check my discount card's price. For the most part, mine's pretty dang good. Oh my god, I didn't mean to do that. You can check crushcost.com if you want to check my discount card's price. For the most part, mine's pretty dang good, and it's very competitive with everybody else. Every once in a while, somebody else has a better price, depending on the medication, and I encourage you to just use the one that gives you the best price, honestly. Now, with all of that taken together, how could anyone ever navigate this system? How could anyone know this? I see it all the time. They have no idea that they have options. So they need someone, they need like a liaison to help with this. In fact, I could even argue there's even a ninth price. A price after manufacturer assistance. There's things called coupon cards, especially for like name brand medications, especially inhalers. And you can go to a company's website and fill out a form or just request assistance, and they will give you a card. It's normally a digital card nowadays. And the pharmacy can then bill the actual manufacturer directly, kind of. And then that's even the ninth price. Typically that's $0, but they may give you an inhaler for like $30 or something like that. Now, all of that taken together, a lot of our physicians don't even understand this. And they shouldn't have to understand it, honestly. It should be a lot easier. What happens is they will send a medication to the pharmacy, and then the copay will be like, I don't know, $20 or something like that. And they'll be like, okay, good. That's $20. That's affordable. Is that the price of the medication, though? They may have just billed the insurance company for thousands of dollars. That could have been Medicare. They could bill Medicare for thousands and thousands of dollars, but the copay is only like $20. It wouldn't be that for Medicare, but just understand that the price the patient pay is not proportionate to how much the medication actually costs, as far as it being a burden to a healthcare system, monetarily speaking. Sometimes I see physicians and reference like a good RX price, which is more reliable than a lot of what I just said there. I'd prefer that they reference the crush cost price, but that is the closest thing to a price that you ever get. I recall working in a pharmacy one time, and the police, one of our police officers called us, and they're like, how much is OxyContin? And they couldn't understand that it's not that simple. The usual and customary price was like ridiculous, but nobody would ever pay that typically. Well, some would, but another thing that I wanted to mention is, now that there's, I said that there's 9, but I don't know, that's debatable. There's lots of different prices for medication, but what are the most relevant? It's to me, this is what I think you need to consider. How much how much an insurance company is burdened. In other words, how much they reimburse for medication. That is very, very relevant when you're talking about Medicare. That's our taxpayer money. And how much it costs for the patient to actually get the medicine. You need to consider both of those. It's not good enough for them to pick it up and pay like $5 or whatever if it was a $5,000 medication and it's something that they don't even really want. That's wasteful. But on the other hand, if something's like if you're not asleep by now, I can't help you. I think that was probably the most boring